The Boston Celtics have run one of the most dramatic financial teardown operations in recent NBA history, and the latest domino to fall suggests the entire strategy might be backfiring badly. What started as a smart cost-cutting move has turned into a chain of trades that's left Boston with essentially nothing to show for one of its most important title team pieces. I've gone through the entire saga, every trade, every quote, every insider reaction, and I'm going to walk you through it all right now. So before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because this one has a genuinely frustrating twist by the end. Let's go back to where this entire chain of moves actually started, because you need the full picture to understand how dramatically this has all unfolded. Back in June of last year, the Celtics traded Jrue Holiday, a genuine title team cornerstone, to the Portland Trail Blazers in exchange for guard Anfernee Simons and a pair of second-round picks. Holiday had been a key part of Boston's success over the previous 2 seasons, saving some of his finest basketball for the 2024 Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana, where his winning plays helped Boston sweep a Pacers team that went on to reach the NBA Finals that same year. But with the second apron and luxury tax concerns piling up, combined with Jason Tatum's Achilles injury completely reshaping the roster's timeline, the front office decided Holiday's remaining 3 years and over $100 million simply had to go. The trade saved Boston $40 million in luxury tax payments for that season alone, according to ESPN's Bobby Marks, even though it only actually reduced their bill by about $4.7 million against the second apron itself. That distinction matters, since it shows the move was primarily about immediate tax relief rather than any long-term positioning against the harsher cap restrictions. It was a financially motivated move through and through, closing the book on a defensive backcourt pairing with Derek White that had been affectionately nicknamed the Stock Exchange by fans and media alike. Simons arrived in Boston as a 26-year-old scoring guard on an expiring contract, someone comfortable shooting from distance and averaging nearly 9 three-point attempts a game over his previous 3 seasons, seemingly a good stylistic fit for head coach Joe Mazzulla's three-point-heavy offensive system. Simons himself spoke candidly about the adjustment ahead of him, telling The Athletic's Jay King that he knew joining Boston meant getting pushed in ways he'd never experienced before, having to play a different style than the one he'd grown used to as the clear go-to option for most of his career in Portland. It was a genuinely honest admission from a player who understood he was walking into a very different role than the one he'd built his reputation on, sacrificing individual usage for the structure of a championship-caliber system. Here's where the story takes its first real turn. Rather than simply keeping Simons and building around him, Boston flipped him again at the trade deadline this past February, sending Simons and a second-round pick to the Chicago Bulls in exchange for veteran center Nikola Vucevic. It was essentially a repeat of the exact same financial maneuver, unloading one contract for a different piece that better fit the roster's immediate needs. In this case, a genuine center to fill the void left by Kristaps Porzingis' own departure earlier in the rebuild. At the time, some analysts even praised the move as a potential repeat of Boston's famous heist trade for Derek White years earlier, hoping Brad Stevens could work similar magic by flipping an expiring contract into a genuine long-term asset. Vucevic had been a starter on the 2024 Mavericks team Boston actually defeated in the NBA Finals, giving him real, proven playoff pedigree that made the pairing feel like a genuinely sensible fit for a team still trying to compete around Jason Tatum's recovery. That's not how it played out. According to recent reporting, Boston does not plan to bring back Vucevic this offseason, meaning the veteran center is expected to simply walk away in free agency for nothing in return. Think about that chain for a second. Jrue Holiday, a legitimate title-winning contributor, got flipped for Anfernee Simons. Simons then got flipped for Nikola Vucevic. And now Vucevic is walking for nothing at all. That's an entire year and a half of asset value completely evaporating through a sequence of financially motivated trades, each one individually defensible, but the cumulative result looking increasingly like Boston simply gave away one of its most important title team pieces for essentially nothing tangible in return. It's the kind of outcome that looks perfectly reasonable at each individual step along the way, but becomes genuinely alarming once you zoom out and trace the entire journey from start to finish. It hasn't gone unnoticed around the league either. One recent analysis argued bluntly that the Portland Trail Trailblazers easily won the entire Jrue Holiday trade, pointing out that Portland's front office took real criticism at the time for acquiring an aging, expensive star instead of simply flipping Simons for future draft assets like most rebuilding teams typically do. But once Holiday actually took the court in Portland, that narrative flipped almost entirely. Holiday's first season with the Blazers went well, while Boston's return on the exact same trade kept devaluing with every subsequent move. First into Simons, then into a rental version of Vucevic, who's now walking away without Boston getting anything substantial back at all. It's a genuinely rare thing to see one side of a trade essentially win outright based purely on what happened well after the actual trade itself. But that's exactly the story this entire saga has become. Derek White, one of the very few players remaining from that 2024 championship roster, has been remarkably candid about watching this entire teardown unfold around him. Speaking with Sports Illustrated's Liam McKeown, White acknowledged just how difficult it's been seeing so many former teammates depart in such a short span. Porzingis and Holiday both traded away, Luke Kornet leaving in free agency, and Al Horford expected to follow him out the door as well. White's exact words captured the bittersweet reality of professional sports perfectly. He said that's the tough part about the business, but it is a business at the end of the day, adding that watching Jrue, KP, and Luke all leave was definitely tough. That you wish you could play with your teammates forever, but that's simply not how this business works. He closed by saying he always wishes his former teammates the best, and that there will be plenty of fun moments whenever they cross paths again down the road. That kind of grounded, mature perspective from White is exactly why he's remained one of the more respected voices in that locker room, even as almost everyone around him has changed. There's also a broader financial picture worth understanding here, because all of this dismantling traces back to one central goal: staying under the NBA's luxury tax to avoid the league's harshest repeater penalties. At one point this offseason, Boston reportedly had $187.7 million committed to just 14 players, sitting uncomfortably close to the roughly $201 million luxury tax line. With Vucevic expected to walk and not return, the front office still has roughly $13.3 million of its non-taxpayer mid-level exception available to add one more meaningful piece, but the era of simply keeping talented rotation players around for the sake of continuity is clearly over in Boston, at least for now. That's a genuinely dramatic shift for an organization that just 2 summers ago was celebrating a title with almost no thought given to the financial consequences that were about to follow. Step back and look at the complete picture here, and this entire saga tells a genuinely important story about roster building in the NBA's current, unforgiving financial landscape. Winning a championship in 2024 didn't buy Boston any real insulation from the harsh realities of the second apron. Instead, this front office has spent the better part of 2 years systematically trading away nearly every meaningful piece from that title roster, and in the specific case of the Holiday chain, watching that value shrink at every single step along the way rather than being preserved or improved upon. It's a genuinely cautionary tale for any team that wins a championship while carrying an expensive, veteran-heavy roster. A reminder that today's collective bargaining agreement punishes spending far more aggressively than in past eras, forcing even recent champions into difficult, value-eroding decisions just to stay financially compliant. Other title-winning franchises across the league would be wise to study exactly how this played out in Boston before assuming their own championship core is safe from similar financial pressure. So here's where everything stands. What started as a straightforward cost-cutting trade of Jrue Holiday for Anthony Simons back in June of last year has turned into a genuinely painful case study in diminishing returns, with Simons himself flipped for Nikola Vucevic at the deadline. And now Vucevic expected to simply walk away for nothing at all this offseason. Combined with the departures of Porzingis, Kornet, and likely Horford, and the more recent blockbuster that sent Jaylen Brown to Philadelphia, Boston's championship roster from just 2 years ago has been almost completely dismantled, leaving Derek White and Jason Tatum as 2 of the only remaining connections to that title-winning group. So tell me what you think. Do you think the Celtics front office mismanaged the Jrue Holiday trade chain, or was staying under the luxury tax simply a necessary evil given the league's current financial rules? And how much longer do you think Boston can keep dismantling its championship roster before it fully becomes a different team entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you catch every update as it happens. I'll be back soon with more Celtics news.